everybody. Client Thursday. Here we go. Client day today. We're going to dig into the brain of Greg. If you're not remember, Greg Cornett was here back in January sharing some details about what his goals were for 2022, what the business looked like, and what you, the professional sales rep, can do to get his attention, to keep his attention, and maybe even do business with him.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
All right. So, Greg, my man, we great conversation off air leading up to this, everybody. And real interesting. So I'll give you a quick overview of some of the highlights of our conversation last time with Greg. Jeff comes in for the victory this morning. Jeffrey,
good morning, Jeff.
Way to go, brother. So when Greg was on in January, Greg, you'd said things like, no matter what happens, you can't be wrong this year. You have almost 1.3 million square feet of warehouse space that you didn't have in 2020 because of the product coming in. There was literally, and DJ just brought it up, but I totally forgot about this part, but you literally got rid of any automated updates or anything, and you started keeping a spreadsheet of everything because all the information you were getting was completely wrong about containers arriving and so on and so forth. All of that equated to 5 times the spend on your annual freight budget. So the question is, we're 6 months in. We're almost at the end of. We're almost at the end of Q2.
Laughing and smiling, Greg. I'm glad you're smiling. That's all I can say.
And I think that just sums it all up, doesn't it, DJ? Show's over. Let's go home, everybody. But
gosh,
where are we at now, Greg? What does it look like? What are some of the? Because we know you had very big things to accomplish in 2022. Just take us through what you've done, where you're at, why you decided to make the moves you made, and kind of share some of the results, if you don't mind.
Good. So first of all, thank you guys for both having me. It's a good way to start on Thursday. I appreciate it.
Yes,
We had a lot of things going on. Start with the number one in my world. We made a decision soon after our last discussion in January to move from a global 3PL to a transportation management system. So that is in process. We're actually at the point where we're doing internal testing during the month of June, and we will be making the full transition at the end of the month. So, to be determined what that kind of impact that is going to have. It's been a good startup. This is the second organization I've worked with on a TMS. Both have been a little bit different, but it's been a good experience to date. I think we learned a lot in the past 3 years. It is not a silver bullet. It's not going to, I don't think it's not going to necessarily move the needle for what's going on, because I don't think that in the present situation that there are any silver bullets out there, because I've been doing this long enough. If there would have been one, I would have done it a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe this gives us a chance to take more control over what we're doing, to try and
So is that the purpose of the TMS, is like visibility control over?
Just to get it under control and so you can see it.
The number one is the visibility. The 3PL that we were utilizing, I think for all intents and purposes, anyone would have struggled with our business, especially what the economic climate was. This is an opportunity just to, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We need to try something different. So
Greg, are you dealing direct with Steamship Lines, though? Because we know all of your product is imported, right?
Yes. Now with the TMS, we will be, and then we'll also be going direct with the domestic carriers and the parcel carriers too. So it's good and it's bad, because my organization, like every other organization out there, is struggling to find people, and more to the point, to find good qualified people. So we are struggling to kind of staff up and figure out where we want to be in the next 6 months and the next 12 months. So for me, the next 6 months are just going to be getting the system in place, trying to regain the confidence of our sales and our customer groups, and then also internally to try and stabilize what we've been doing. So, and we're doing all this at the same time that the world's going to go sitting on another axis again in about 30 to 60 days. So since our imports come from Asia. So
Can we address something real quick here for a moment, Greg? You said something, and I think it's where DJ is going to go.
Yes.
Your sales and your customers. It sounds to me like there was kind of a lack of faith, a lack of trust, a lack of the ability for you guys to deliver. Is that what you're finding, where you got to kind of rebuild that reputation, if you will, because of what's happened in the market?
Yes, and again, I'm not going to put 100% of the fault on the 3PL nor on the carriers. It's just been, I'll use an example. In Normal, which at this point was 3 years ago.
When was that? Yeah, I don't even remember.
What is normal anymore?
So back in Normal, I'll just use an example. Coming from Asia, coming to the Port of Long Beach. When the vessel sails, it would be usually within 1 day of that initial sales schedule. Now that point is probably plus minus 5 to 7, I guess. Secondly, with that arrival date, it would discharge, and usually within 24 hours, it would move inland. Now that's 5 to 10 days. And then once it moved inland in normal situations, our LTL facilities, they would usually unload that container, pro them, and send them out within the next day. Now, depending on what port location, it's anywhere between 2 to 5 days. So
you could be somewhere around 20 to 25 days behind just by the time it gets on a truck to get out.
Yes. And so to your point earlier, and to DJ's point about, we transitioned to a spreadsheet that we use internally. And I use a lot of math, and based upon averaging that, I can come pretty close within probably 3 days of when that vessel sails, of when I estimate it's actually going to deliver to the customer, which is pretty outstanding. And it's not because I'm smarter, it's because I set some of the formulas to adjust as it goes along. But we get pretty close. But that's a lot of time. I mean, that's me doing a spreadsheet that probably takes me about 15 to 20 hours a week. Our forwarder
15 to 20 hours a week.
Yes, and that's my time. That's not my team's time. That's my team.
Plus your regular job, plus.
Yes.
I hope that gives every salesperson listening an idea of how much time people do not have to hear your fluff.
Well, and how valuable clearly his position is. Going back to something you said, Greg, which I heard this saying from Alex Hormozy, but you mentioned a silver bullet, and he said business is a game. Business is golden BBs, not silver bullets, and I think you nailed it. It's just your guys' strategy of it is you're taking this golden BB approach.
Well, and I can communicate that as clearly and consistently as possible, internally and externally. But the message is going to get lost as we start going, because again, I know it's coming, and I've been projecting it to the organization for going on a couple of months, ever since Shanghai really went under lockdown. And I said, I just want everybody to understand that we do believe this is the correct strategic decision for the organization. But right about the time that we are going live is when things are going to get really bad. And it's going to,
of course.
And
why wouldn't it?
I think it's going to make 2021 look pretty passive compared to what it's going to be, because we're going to be hitting these incredible conditions right in the peak season, which whenever peak is now the time. So there's been a lot of challenges there. I will say to the carriers' credit this year, I have seen much better communication than we have had in the past, and especially for the inland domestic carriers. Really, once it gets to the terminal and starts moving, I would say the carriers are operating pretty much under normal conditions. Capacity really hasn't been that big of an issue. It's just getting the ocean freight to them. And the steamship lines in the ports, I think there has been improvement over last year. It's been, one of the ports we use is Vancouver, and it's been really interesting to me about the natural disaster at the end of last year, and it caused a lot of challenges up there. And then probably for about most of the first quarter, they were doing okay. And then just recently, I started seeing containers go into closed areas in Vancouver over the past month, which I never would have thought I would have seen. And even the rail service with the CN and the CP suffered a little bit coming out of Vancouver, which I wouldn't expect either. I do, and on that topic, I do think that the rail systems are starting to show strain again. Hopefully, we don't go back to the situation we did in 21, where, at least for my freight, most of it was embargoed coming from the West Coast that I had to move it by truck into the U.S. Midwest and Northeast. So a lot of headwinds still out there. Costs are still extremely high. We have been going directly to carriers now with our new setup instead of going through the 3PL that they're doing the RFPs. And what I'm finding is that the industry expectations that pricing is up 10 to 15% right now is about right. And so you're paying for a service, but I do think that service has been improving over the last 6 months.
Well, that's good to hear.
Dean said something yesterday on Data Day Wednesday, where he had, and DJ, correct me if I'm wrong, 23% of down employees in the rail community, in the rail service, something like that. Like they still need 23% more employees to get back to where they were pre-pandemic, because they furloughed so many people who went and got retooled and rejobbed. So he was saying that is actually going to add a huge strain, because you're almost 25, you're almost a quarter of your staff down. And we all know what happens if 25% of our staff is not there. Things don't quite run as smooth. So he was saying, that's going to cause a major issue. Obviously, getting contained. We have all these ships hit the ports again. We've been through it. Getting containers to the location and getting them back to the ports, and then to the point where when this was happening, most ships were sailing empty back to Asia, because it was just like, we can't wait. We've waited so long just to get our containers. We can't wait for freight anymore, and we're going back empty. What kind of jump do you see in the container pricing, Greg? Like, so I know, back, call it 2019 into 2020, container prices started rising. 2021, they were like astronomical, and then they came down for a bit. And have they gone back up?
What I'm seeing is they've about stabilized for the last 6 months or so. Now, that being said, I do expect them to start going up again very soon. So I would say from 19 to 20, we were up probably about 2 times. And then from 20 to 21, we were up about 3 times. And that so far in 2022, it's stayed about the same. So, it's not getting cheaper. And every indication, I had an internal discussion about saying, hey, Greg, when are our standard costs going to go back to normal? And it's like, okay, again, define what's normal. And if you want to use 19 as the baseline, then I'd probably say about once we get into the next decade, probably, because if or when a global recession does start, for however long it's going to be, the ocean carriers, they took a beating for most of the last decade. So, I would fully intend that if they're going to start withholding supply, if demand starts to drop, and they're going to start laying up ships or doing whatever they need to do too. So, and it's the shippers and the governments that have to have an impact on that to talk about it. So, it's going to be real challenging. The freight costs are the freight costs, and as long as you plan for them, and it's not like it's hidden news that not anybody's experiencing, and inflation's running wild, and that's a big part of it. I think the biggest concern, actually, and I've started to see it in our own locations, and I'm seeing in others, is warehouse space, because now you're going to have a bunch of pent up demand coming in. And it appears that consumer buying may be slowing down a little bit, and with inflation high, we've been running our warehouses at 85% plus capacity through the pandemic, and we made strategic decisions at the end of 21, early 22, to make sure that we had enough product on hand to service our customers' demands. And now the bullwhip's going to start coming in, and I was reading a report on, I think some business report, that some of the big boxes, Target, Walmart, they're already talking about heavily discounting some of their bigger, bulkier items, TVs, refrigerators, because they're taking up so much warehouse space, and they bet on consumers being able to purchase those, and it's slowed way down. So now they're going to start discounting. So I think you're going to start seeing that too, as another challenge, that the warehouses are all full, and there's literally no place to put the product because we planned so far ahead to have enough inventory, and now the buying sells down. So
it's funny you say that, Greg. Yesterday we were talking, and I said to everybody, I said, if you bought a big blow up tent right now, like how driving ranges and stuff, right? I go, you'd fill it in like 10 minutes, no problem, because it's the warehouse space. Now there's a part of that, if you're okay with it, and I didn't really ask you this off air, so I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm going to do it anyways. Only because I love it.
That's Dan.
Yeah, you know me. Freight costs are freight costs. So with your cost going up 2, 3, 4 times, how does a corporation like yourself, what do they do? Like, do you now start shaving here? Do you go back to customers? Do you raise prices to customers? Like how does a corporation stay profitable in a situation like that? Or what do you do internally? What kind of conversations do you have? Because I think it's going to be great insight for salespeople out there to fully understand not just the A and B, but the C, D, and E that happens when things like this happen in a massive,
I was so glad you asked this
multi-billion-dollar corporation like yourself.
Trying to think without giving out trade secrets.
Yes, and I apologize. I know I put you on the spot.
And I think I can speak for pretty much any manufacturer. The answer is all of the above. So, what can you do to save costs internally? That's always the first one to talk about. So, for example, I'll just use me. I have 2 open positions right now. And can I survive without filling those positions and wait a little bit longer? And for me, it's actually pretty good timing because I have new technology coming in. I have to figure out what it means and what it's going to do for productivity. But can I delay hiring? Which in the present conditions with what the job market is, that's a pretty safe bet anyways. That's 1. 2, what can you do differently on capital expenditures? Can you delay bringing on something, opening a new warehouse, bringing in new machines? Third would be, really the third is the price increase to the customers. And that's always the last lever that at least my organization, and I think most shippers, that's the last one that they want to pull. Because it's tough, because then the concern's going to be like, okay, I'm going to a customer with a price increase when my lead times have extended by 25%, I've become less reliable. But it's a real discussion, because it's not just about freight costs, it's also about material costs. So for me in packaging, it's the rosin prices to make those pouches initially. Everything is going up, and how much can you really pass on to the customer? And we're a mid-sized company, so it's not like we're dominating the market and that we have control over the market, that we can say this is what the price is. Our customers have choices. We have very loyal customers that have been with us for a long time, but they're watching costs at the same time too. So it's a delicate dance, which I think it's that delicate dance that everyone's playing at the same time, and they're always playing, because when things get really good, are you going to go in and say, hey, I'm delivering a great product to you, and I have to increase the cost, or am I going to decrease it? What are you going to do to market share? So it's something that we push and pull on pretty consistently. I would say that I think we've absorbed a high percentage of the costs, and it's been the right thing to do, because it's enabled us to get some more business that we may not have had before the pandemic. But it's a real challenging situation for everyone. So I feel fortunate to work for an organization that thinks long-term versus short-term. So we're not making short-sighted decisions, with the goal of really meeting and exceeding our customers' expectations.
I've spoken to a few people, and the general consensus was they're having some of the best years ever for sales, but they're still not making money. So it's like the business is growing, the profitability is not, but the business is growing.
And that's the key.
Hang on. Hang on until things turn, and then you've grown your business, right?
Yeah, I think from talking to my peers in the industry, I think a lot of companies are in that standpoint that they're doing real well from a top line, and just hoping and planning that that continues post pandemic. That we stuck with somebody through the pandemic, met their needs, so that they were able to accomplish their goals, and so that's what partnerships are about. And I think for my organization, and more specifically when I talk to carriers, it's about mutual. It does need to work for both of us. I'm one of those people that I think that win-wins don't really exist. It's just somebody giving up a little bit more to still get something. But as long as you're communicating and that it's beneficial for both organizations, that's ideally what you're trying to accomplish.
What you just said there hit a tone with me so well. When I owned Teamwork Freight Systems and the crash of 2008 and 9 came, customers were looking for that. They were looking for me, their partner, to help them achieve their goals, to do what we needed to do in order to help them survive.
Yeah.
And my response when they came to me was, are you kidding me? I've broken my back for you for X amount of time. And now because at that point I never watched the news. I didn't pay attention to anything economically. I thought it was all just, death, murder, forget about it. I'm only good vibes. But when the economy crashes and the stock market and things happen, good vibes are good vibes, but they don't really protect you. So it was one of these things where, my entire focus went to, are you kidding me? Like, you're going to do this? And, $37 million company turned into a $300,000 company in about 6 months.
Yeah.
And you can lose it real quick.
Yes.
If you don't have that vision of how do I, it would have been simple. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, how do I help you get through this? And the company would have been a million times stronger in 2011 and 12. Right, because it's really, that was how quick the turnaround was. It was like 2000, mid 2010 into 2011. It turned around real quick after that crash. Obviously big government bailouts and that kind of stuff, but that's that's just what it was. And so that is, I believe, the key to dealing in times like this is, okay, here's the situation. We all got it. We're all in it. How do we help you achieve your goals? And for you as a corporation to have that mentality as well, Greg, tells me you're in the right space. You really are.
Agreed. We have some comments to go to, Dan, but Greg, to that point, I think, guys, anybody listening, this is, I know you mentioned that you don't believe in the win-win, but somebody has to give up. But I think for somebody giving up, there is that win. And what you're seeing here is what Greg is telling you is what we've been talking about. Collaboration is the only way. And it's really understanding that somebody in this triangle of how you're working things is in survival mode, whether it's the shipper, Greg, or somebody else. They're in a game of survival right now. I mean, that is literally, one of you said survival, and I was like, yes, that's literally what we're in right now is a bunch of companies trying to survive, but we have to survive together. And that's the only way.
Well, you always got to look through it of the lens of your customer.
Yeah.
Like I truly believe, and hence the reason why we have like John Brewer on, we have Greg on, we have like Chuck Snow from Traffics on. We have to look through it like Greg, a salesperson that sees things through your lens will always connect with you on a better level than a salesperson that says, hey, I'm here to move your freight and make a commission. Because let's not hide the fact. Everyone that touches your business is making money, right? Yes. Every carrier that touches your business, now gas rates might be up, profits might be down, but they're making money. The idea is we're in business for profit, not practice. But like, it's that, okay, if I have to take a hit today to make tomorrow better, so be it, right? It is what it is. We do it for our family all the time. We, as parents, we sacrifice things for us, for our kids, time, whatever it be. We do that. And that is how that connection works. And it goes as far as, so having you share this is amazing
Yes,
information, because it
yes.
helps every salesperson see through
Yes,
your
seriously,
lens,
thank you.
right? Just the fact that you spend 20 hours a week, like an
Creating a
additional
spreadsheet.
20 hours a week on a spreadsheet, just so you can have the accurate information to give to your salespeople to help your customers feel more comfortable with the information you give them. Like that's insane. That's like almost another, your 40 hours. You know what I mean? It's very quickly you could be up to that 80 hours a week of working just
Yep.
to make ends meet, to keep your customers happy. That, I think, is remarkable for you to do that.
Yes.
So yes, we have a lot. So Jeff says good morning. Jeff was the winner this morning. Greg says, boom, I really think Lisa has a special sign-in device. Jeff says, good morning, Greg. Hope you're well. Lisa says, yeah, Greg, I wish. LOL. Damon says, good morning. Good morning, Damon. Joshua, good to see you, brother. He says, gives us a better view from 30,000 feet. Exactly.
He's talking about the TMS, I think. So,
yeah, the TMS. And also the conversation today should give you all a real huge bird's eye view.
Exactly.
Jeff says, good morning, everybody. Damon says, the corridor from Vancouver Port to Midwest USA has been very busy over the past year and continues to be. Yeah, they're getting, I mean, even up Prince Rupert, all of it, and Lisa says, exactly. Wait, did Jeff win? How did Jeff win? Yeah, well, unless, yes. Yeah,
well, actually, he did today. You didn't show up today for some reason on on our thread, but she already won for the week, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, so Lisa said good morning, but didn't show up on the thread. That's interesting.
Yeah. Did you see that? Yeah.
No.
I think that's why Greg said that she has something in, but it didn't show up on our end. So.
Oh, so Lisa did win.
According to Greg,
or did Jeff win? We're gonna have to do an instant replay on that, folks, and we'll get back to you with the stats on that. Right now, we're gonna call it a no dice, but no goal, and we're gonna get back to you on the stats with that. Okay.
Oh man.
So Greg, TMS implemented, visibility, more control. You were talking about. What do you see? How can I phrase this question where it's going to be okay? So what's changed from your goals at the beginning of 2022 to now, and how will the TMS and the choices you've made, how do you see them getting you there?
So I would say our number 1 and 2 goals, visibility and transparency, which are kind of the same thing in a way. But when I'm talking visibility, I'm talking it's tracking and tracing for the customer respect. Transparency is control, and it's transparency of freight costs. With the 3PL, I've been doing it long enough that there's part of a trust factor, and to me, I'm just looking at the finish line. So, I don't need an invoice to show. I don't need an invoice from the carrier saying that, yeah, they actually charged the 3PL $2,000 to do something like this, because that's not what I'm playing for. I'm playing for the end final cost. But for our organization, we want more transparency to say, okay, what really includes all those $2,000 in costs. So those are going to be the 2 main goals for the organization. I don't anticipate us being 100% at that for through the next 6 months. I think it's going to be an iterative approach, and again, it's not a silver bullet. We have to grow into it, and excuse me. We're going to be going into an even more challenging situation. So it's going to be a tough, frustrating time. I was talking to a couple of my managers saying that, hey, when we get into June, July, and August, we're really going to have 3 kinds of shipments going on. We're going to have the 3PL shipments that are going to be completing out. We're going to have the gap shipments that we had to do outside of the TMS system, but not with the 3PL until those get completed, and then the TMS shipments. So it's going to be really challenging. It's tough to track and trace and provide visibility right now, and now I have to do it times 3 for probably the next couple of months. So those are going to be our main goals, and I think as we get into 2023, something can't even lose track of days. I'm losing track of years now lately.
I hear you, brother.
2023.
Youre.
I don't think that there's going to be, when I do the budgeting for next year, there might be a small cost decrease that we're putting in, but it's not going to be anything radical. I expect our costs to stay probably about where they are at least through the end of 23. Looking out any further than that's going to be real challenging because of what are the economic conditions going to be in the globe going through. So we have some, I think, realistic objectives, and I always believe that it's better to be realistic. I'm going to stretch. So, if I think we can do something at 90% of the time, I'm going to stretch it to 92, 93, because that is important. I'm not going to sandbag it, but I'm not going to do anything silly or foolish, especially with what we're coming out of the last 3 years also. What to me is going to be real interesting is that I'm reconfiguring the department about how we're going to manage things. So, for example, we're adding 2 people in Asia. So really what we're going to do is try to look at this as what happens in Asia happens in Asia. So my team in Asia will be working with our suppliers, with the ocean carriers, setting everything up. And then once it progresses to North America, then it's a handoff within the system and within our organizational structure to my team that's in North America. So we're going to try to segment things a little bit more and have people really focus and concentrate on separate parts of the supply chain, which I anticipate that's where we're going to have the biggest improvement to giving the organization and giving our customers more control over what we're doing. It's also establishing accountability for those separate sections too.
So I've got a question for you. And it's obviously at this point hypothetical, but let's say, for example, if you're 3PL that you were dealing with prior to making the decision to go to the TMS, if they gave you a cost plus model where it had full visibility, you had a complete breakdown of why the $2,000 was, and then they said, you know what, we're going to add a 12% margin for management kind of thing, as opposed to you hiring a new employee or whatever, and was able to give you a lot of the tools for transparency, both on ocean and all that, would you have considered a TMS, or would you have said, okay, well, we've got the right people in place because we got the people that are looking after our best interests and looking after our goals so we can look after our customers' goals?
I'll give you 2 different answers. So one, in my present situation, that would not have been something that we would consider just because of what we've gone through the last 3 years. Say you were coming to me and I was working at company BDX instead of at Flare Packaging. It's coming into me with a 3PL proposal. Yes, I think that would be good. I've been through a number of pricing, a number of 3PLs during my career. I've been through ones where it's cost plus. I've been through ones where it's a transaction fee per shipment. I've also been through 3PL situations where I have a fixed cost on a monthly basis, so that I'm going to pay X amount of dollars every single month. Each one is dependent upon the organization, and what I think for the group that's listening, you have to get the logistics group or like myself on board as an entry point, but it's really the finance department of that organization that's probably going to make that decision what they want to do, because I'm ambivalent. I'm looking at just at the end of that shipment, it cost me X before, and now it's costing me Y. I don't really care how you get there. I just hope that you get there, and then we can do all the scorecards at the end. But the finance departments, some finance departments I've worked with want to know every little nickel and where it's going here and there, and they may not know what bunker fuel is, but they want to know that you're actually charging for that instead of something else. So it can be overkill a little bit. When I look at the end of the scenario from logistics, it's to me, it's really 2 things. It's the freight percentage of my purchase price from my suppliers, and it's the freight percentage of my sale price to the customer. Those are the 2 things that I believe are the best 2 metrics for logistics to be managing to, because they're the most impactful. And you can call them a landed cost, you can call them whatever you want, but I think those are the two easiest ways to look at it.
What are those two numbers that you used to be at that you'd like to get at again?
Well, at Flair, we've never done that before, and actually, I'm trying to get there with the TMS. I would guess that we're probably up double digits in both of those from where we were.
Typically, you're kind of hoping to be in a 4 to 5% range.
Yeah, it depends on the industries. You know, I've worked for companies where, you know, I worked for a trucking company for 15 years, and you know, we have 5-6% margin, and we were doing cartwheels. And then I worked for a defense contractor, and it's like your margin was only 35%. So I mean, it's
like I said, only.
Yeah. It's
yeah, well, you know, you look at big box stores, they're 50% margins. Like Walmart will typically not take a product into store unless they can make a 50% margin. That's including their, I think it's 2% OS&D. But I've always operated on the average that most manufacturers are trying to be with under 7% on overall cost to get the product to customer, their shipping costs, right?
Yeah, and I was listening to National Public Radio, it must have been a month or two ago, that talking about, you know, for a manufacturing company in general, you know, 60% of the cost of that product was usually in the material cost previously, and 30% in SG&A. And that number has really flipped over this year, that because of the problems with getting people, and that SG&A has become a much higher percentage. But what the point of the report I was watching, I probably got the percentages wrong, but the point of the report was that not only that it has flipped, but that organizations haven't reduced their profit margins. So they're still trying to hold that profit margin that they would have previously, if not increase it, even though that SG&A costs, and freight is sometimes part of that too, have increased rapidly.
Interesting.
Wow.
This was an awesome conversation, Greg.
Seriously,
huge insights. Like, you know, hope all y'all out there, let Greg know what you thought of today's conversation, because that's going to be important. Share with us kind of your thoughts. You know, was it good? Did you learn something? Did you get something out of it? Did it give you a real good insight as to what maybe some of your customers and your prospects, your future customers, are going through today? And how is it going to change your approach to how you do what you do? Like, our you know, for me anyways, it's one of these things where if I was still in that world when I got off this session day, I'd be calling every single one of my cususers and figuring out exactly
everyone, and I would just ask the questions that Greg, just anything that Greg brought up, I'm asking.
Because you are going to be the only one that's asking it.
Yeah.
And if this is going on in your customer's head, get ahead of it. So, wow. Greg, thank you, brother.
Greg, seriously, yes. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for joining us and just giving all this amazing info. I mean, guys, if you don't see what it's like on the other end and you're not getting the sneak peek, I mean, this is the best view of getting. If you don't have this kind of relationship with the customers and clients that you're working with right now, this is your sneak peek to it. This is what's going on. But you need this kind of relationship. So they're having this same conversation that Greg is having with us on here. They should be having that with you. And you need to get to that point. Seriously, Greg, thank you so much for just.
Yeah, Damon says, Greg loved the work ethic, the understanding of the different components in logistics and transportation. And Lisa says, yes, thank you, Greg. And, you know, there's another point to this, DJ. You know, when we have amazing people like Greg, like John on the show, it's all of you watching and listening that are live. It's your opportunity to ask the questions that you really want answered, because Greg is the person you're going to speak to when you want to grow your business, when you're soliciting, when you're selling, when you're outbound dialing. Greg's the person you're going to be speaking to. Ask the questions you want answered to help you move your business.
Get inside of their brain more. Get inside of what they're thinking and how they're looking at things. I mean, the fact that he's doing 15 to 20 hours more you're not getting paid for that 15 to 20 hours of breaking down Excel spreadsheets extra, right? I mean, that's just something you have to do.
It's a labor of love, DJ.
Yes.
I love it.
You see, this is the
But
thing.
that's why you are who you are, and why you do what you do. So,
and you're doing
Greg,
it because you want your customers to have a better experience, and you don't want to be that guy that customers are lost because of. You just don't want to. You're here for a specific reason. You're here for a mission. You're here to help make your customers' lives better.
Yes.
Greg, I think you're remarkable, brother.
Yes,
Well,
seriously.
I don't care what Jeff says about you. You're awesome.
Well, I was actually thinking about it. I have a lot of windshield time during the summer driving around with my kids, and this is the first organization that I've been at that I wasn't at the tip of the spear about either reducing costs for the organization or profitability when I was at a carrier. And I remember I've been here for 5 years now, and I remember when a recruiter brought me in and they said, your objective is to basically blow up the logistics department and lower the overall spend. And it's like, okay, great. And now for the last 3 years, I feel like I've just been an ATM machine, just jacking out the cash. I'm not saving the company any money, but the focus is
an
really
ATM at home and an ATM at work.
It's pretty much so.
Lisa actually is asking a great question, and this is the core of why we do what we do here. So how does someone get in the foot in the door when you don't have much time to explore new suppliers? I mean, I think that's the big question.
Yeah, this is always the boogeyman question. Now, Dan and I talk a lot about this, and even to the extent that Dan and I had a discussion last week, and he sent me some templates for kind of letters to approach potential new customers and getting my 2 cents. I'm going to say in advance, I know it's really difficult for you because number one, you have to be throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and hoping that some of it sticks. It's the nature of the business. You don't have time on a daily basis to try and go through and understand what Greg's business does on a daily basis. And you're never going to get it through open source material either. I mean, there's not anything on the website. You can't Google Flare flexible packaging and say that, Greg does 90% LTL. It's very difficult. And how's the only way that you can find out about that? Well, it's by talking to Greg, but Greg's really busy, and so he doesn't want to talk to you. So that's a roundabout way of saying I understand your pain. But I mean, the biggest part and the biggest challenge is understanding your client. And I think it's really about that initial contact, keeping it general, but leading with strength. So you don't need to know that I do LTL, but do something in that first 2 sentences that's going to grab my attention. I was reading something on hiring managers spend 8 seconds looking at a cover letter and a resume. So what can you do in that first 10 seconds to grab my attention? So don't lead with, I've got trucks, by the way. Don't ever lead with that because that's going to go, I'm not going to respond to you on that.
Nobody believes you. Even if you do, nobody believes you. I'm just telling you.
Don't lead with that. I guess my advice to you is that the best way to approach me is starting with a question to me. So for example, Greg, what keeps you up at night? Or Greg, what are some of the biggest challenges you have? And the other part that I see on a lot of messages right now are saying, hey, do you have time for a 10 to 15 minute call? The answer to that is no, I don't have time for a 10, 15 minute call to you. But like when calls come in to me, they usually go through our admin assistant here. And what she does is she gives those referrals my email address and says, email Greg. And I do it that way, not to ignore you, but so that I can keep track of what our conversation is. So if you can reach me on email and start with a, hey, real general question about something that make me answer you about what are you looking for in a partner, or what are you keeping up on supply? I will answer that question. But if you lead with, hey, I've got trucks, I'm not going to do that. I get some messages saying, hey, Greg, we have tons of flatbeds and reefers. We want to do work with you. Hey, I need flexible packaging. I'm not using flatbeds and I'm not using reefers. I mean, that's kind of common sense. that if I'm making packaging, I don't need those two. You could say that, well, Greg, it's because of your product that goes inside of it. Well, I don't make the product that goes inside of it. So I don't need temperature protection. I don't need to be putting stuff on flatbed. But if you give me an opening to respond to you, I will. And I think that most people will, but you have to hit us real fast within those first 2-3 sentences. And for Greg specifically, I will reply to you, and I'll keep it on email just so that we can go back and forth. I'll use Dan as an example. Our last company I was at, it took Dan a good 12 months, I think, to actually get my business. But he was persistent, and he was asking me questions about what I need or what I'm looking for versus what he has. And I think that's a key part. And that's going to help you understand your customer a little bit better too. So that's the other part. Lead with trying to understand more about me and about my company, because you'll get a lot further faster because it's very easy for me to just delete you if you say I got trucks, which is it's coming out pretty clear that I don't like it when I see that.
Yes, guys, if that is not clear, what he is driving the point. And Greg, I'm so glad you said that too about Dan. I think it's obviously bringing relevance and asking a question that it might be a pain point to them. So you are already moving something similar and you're dealing with those pains. Bring that up and see if that's a pain that they're dealing with, or better yet, a pain that you can fix. See if that's a pain they're dealing with. But then the bigger key that Greg mentioned is persistence. Would you agree that if they say something that triggers you to think or respond, and then they're just every so often checking in and they're there, it's just timing and right place, right time. And oh man, I need somebody, and here you go.
Yeah. And so
and then there's another part of it is delivering.
Yes.
In the end, delivering on the conversation, because Greg, I'm pretty sure you would have remembered from the first conversation all the way to the last conversation if I didn't deliver, and you would have gone back and said, well, Dan, when he was asking me questions, he said he delivered on that kind of stuff. And that was right up his alley, but it doesn't seem to be right up his alley. And the dovetail to that is when you deliver, you have relationships like Greg and I have. Greg went to a new company. What did he do? Called me, says, I'm at this new company. This is what I want to do. I want to blow up the logistics division. Can you come out to Calgary? Can you do this? We did work together until I left the industry. Like I was involved in all of the major bids. And so that relationship continues because you've developed it over time. Almost every one of my customers has gone to different companies or stuff like that. And that's how we grow a consistent, long-term, relationship-driven business. But you're right, Greg. It started with questions. I asked you about a dozen questions. And I think actually on our first call, if you remember, on about the 15th question, I was like, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm interrogating you.
Well, and I would say that, the other point is, to your earlier point, Dan, I don't think I'm unique, but that this business is relationship based too. So, for Dan's former company, when I changed companies, I went right back to them because we had a relationship and we had the trust factor. When Dan left that company has to be solid enough to retain my business without Dan being the key factor. So, predicated upon the business that we do together, not the personal relationship. But again, I don't think I'm unique in the industry because anybody in my role, there has to be a lot of trust because I'm staking my reputation on what you're going to do and what you're going to deliver. So, the other part is you get in with somebody, you're going to get them pretty much whatever company they go to.
Well, and I'm going to give you more credit than you're giving yourself, Greg, because you are unique. I guarantee Jeff is very similar to you were when Jeff was in this role. If Jeff's still out there, I guarantee Jeff was asking the same questions when he was a customer. But you are unique because there are clients out there, people in your role that just send out a list and don't actually care, just have a number, and they don't actually do anything of the value and care about the customers, care about times, care about stuff like you do. So you are different, but you're the kind of customer, you're the kind of client that I guarantee most people on the show are looking for. So this is what you're looking for, not somebody who just wants, hey, what here's my list, or here's the list that I'm going to send out, try to beat these prices. They don't care. And there's a lot of those people too. So you are different, Greg. Don't, you are definitely
But Greg's different. Greg's the exact
because
customer every high performance salesperson wants. So,
yes,
you know, there's always tiers, right? And
yes.
good or bad. I mean, I've known salespeople that have made an entire career off chase freight.
Of
and
course.
all they do is they try and get the cheapest rate of the day.
It's possible,
and
but
it's a lot of work. It's huge stress. It's like you can't take a vacation, but some people thrive on it.
And you don't have relationships with people like Greg doing that. That's it.
It's only this. Yes. This is the relationship. I got $15 here, $20 here.
Transaction,
who can do 30?
Yep.
Who can do 50? Who can do 75? 75 sold, cheaper price. You know, like it's like, damn, I didn't know I was at I don't know what's the big farm auction, auction or whatever. I don't know, but I didn't know I was at the Brothers auction or whatever. But yeah. Lisa says, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, fulfillment and follow through with what we say we are going to do. Absolutely. Yes. Actually, sorry, I know we haven't keep. So Thomas says, what's the best way to find a niche? Oh, sorry. No. How is the best way to find a niche? That's a fantastic question, Thomas. Go ahead, DJ. I'll let both of you share. Go.
I have to think a little bit, DJ. So
okay, go, DJ.
I mean, so I'll tell you. I mean, the way I did it was, I really, when I got into this industry, I tried everything. I shipped tanker loads to bulk stuff to any kind of different reefer to dry van to flatbed to everything you could think of. But then I realized really quick where my niche was dry van and canned foods. But it was more because the ability and what I already knew. But the better, I guess, to your question, Thomas, you do need to find a niche. Don't try. And that's what I was given that advice pretty early, thankfully. Because otherwise my personality would have been all over just trying everything the whole time. But I talked to people in the industry. Thankfully, have an aunt and uncle who my aunt, her family members have been brokers for a while. And so reached out to them and they said, you need a niche. And I was like, a niche? But I like doing all of this. No, you need a niche. And so, yeah, once I really found what I liked, what I could understand, and what really just tied to me, that was the way I found my niche. Beauty.
Are you ready, Greg, or did you want me to?
Yeah. You know, I agree with what DJ said. It's interesting. You know, when I was on the carrier side, and then also when I've been on the shipper side now for the past X amount of years, without giving out my age, it's interesting that it's like a 5-year cycle for organizations that, you know, they'll go to, hey, I want to segment this so that, you know, you, for example, are just responsible for this part of the business, and then there's a handoff to the next business, the whole silos. And then you go to, I know there's a major LTL carrier in the U.S., North America, that's out there right now that has tried to take a bunch of those things and put them together and say, hey, now you're going to sell everything too. And it's just interesting and fascinating to see the organization's evolutions. That's like, it's pretty much on a 5-year cycle that pull in, pull out, pull in, pull out. So to my point, to my perspective for Thomas, I agree with DJ that it's better to be really good at a couple things than to be a jack of all trades. Now you need the overall experience and the overall knowledge. That I will say, and I do this personally, I don't need to know the answer to every question, but I do need to know the people that I can go to. So in the example that when I was working with Dan was solving a specific problem for me. But then the trust factor came that I was able to go to Dan with almost any kind of question, and he may not have the answer, but I mean, it's Dan, so he knows the answer to every question, but he would be able to
go even out close.
He would be able to go out and stretch. So my suggestion is you find a couple things that you're really good at and just become really good at them and nail them every single time. And then as your career and your business expands, that again, you don't need to know the answer to everything, but you need to be able to know the people or the resources that can get you those answers.
Those are two fantastic answers.
I love that you said that, Greg. Just to touch on that, guys, you don't have to be all the resources as much as you have to be resourceful. Be resourceful
That's
to be finding
That's
those
a better
answers.
way to say it.
So Thomas, my version of this is you start with what you love. What interests you? Is it geographical? Is it equipment? Is it a commodity? So when I first started in the industry, my niche was wrapping paper. I had to, I was so excited on this. Like for me, the excitement of having nothing going to like 7 loads a day and the distribution and the coordinating of everything and getting it into warehouses and getting it into stores and watching kids' faces as they grab wrapping paper, that like just totally threw me off the chart. So I focused on that. As my career evolved, I had a real anchoring and real interest in machinery. How does that piece of machinery get here? Like when you look at a 30-foot generator, like how does it get here and how does it go and how does it get off of an RG and how does that happen and how does this happen? So I started investigating it. When I started to look at geographical and the overall economics of the geography of North America and why is this place for 6 weeks a year just insane? And I started looking at geography, and then that led me to working and getting relationships with suppliers in that geographical area. That led me to a geographical niche. So there's multiple niches. You know, I've friends of mine, I don't know if Ryan's watching, Ryan's niche used to be trade shows because he used to really understand. And here's the thing, you got to love it to the point where you geek out on it. And what I mean by that is like you asked DJ and I about data. It's like I would read articles on data all day long. And most people will get narcolepsy after 4 sentences of reading something on data. So for me, pharmaceuticals, hazmat stuff. I mean, I remember going in to a company, Pure Mall, up in Ontario, and they shipped a concentrated version of bromine that literally 5 tablespoons, if it got out, you'd have to clear a 3-mile radius because it would burn your esophagus out. Yeah. That kind of stuff, I was like, oh, I'm in all day long because I'm researching that chemical and I'm geeking out on it. So the first part is, if I were you and you're understanding, like, how do I get into a niche? Start looking at things you use every day and why you love them. And I'll give you a perfect example of this to close out is when I said that. Yeah. So when I had a gray car, a gray silver vehicle, my wife bought me this like F1 wax stuff, which is like this waterless wax. And it was before like Simonize and all these other companies had it. And I was like, yeah, okay, it's cool. You know, I don't have to rinse my car in anything. But when I bought a black car and I could not get the water spots off it. Now, y'all know if you ever had a black vehicle, when they're clean, they're like, mwah, they are mint. Yeah. But when they're dirty, they look like shit. And so I just couldn't get my car clean. And then I remembered, I'm like, what was that stuff my wife got me? And I ended up finding it. So I get a bottle of it and I use it to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Like it went from this is okay to like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And like the sky opened up, the beans came down. I was like, oh, you know? And so what did I do? I call F1. I find out that a company, Pizzazz International, is the one that brings it in. I called this traffic manager. I go, you don't understand, man. I use your stuff. And I go, oh my God, it was amazing. And he goes, dude, you got the business. I go, what? He goes, anyone that has a love of the product like that, I know you're going to take care of me. And it was that easy. But like, that's how you develop a niche. What do you love? Right? Does the temp, you know, the return air temp and all this on reefers, does it rock your boat? I know it sounds, some people might be like, what, Dad? Return air temp? Absolutely. Understanding heat maps in a reefer, does all of that rock your boat? Oh, your product needs to be this temperature. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in the middle of the trailer instead of the end. You have a 9 pallet space before the heat map wipes out or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like all of these things are so available in our industry. It's just, what do you geek out about? What do you really love? Because you can make a entire career off shipping stuff this size. You can make an entire career off shipping stuff like this. You can make an entire career off shipping mugs. Like it's all available to you, brother. Yes. I hope that helped.
Yes, that was great. Seriously, that was so good. And to your point, and to Dan's point, just to finish that up, and then we do have to go because I think Greg's ready to go, and we're pushing an hour again. So,
oh my God, we are! Holy crap!
Yeah, we have been way too long. But to your point, Dan, so mine ended up the vegetables ended up being my why. My why was very big, and so knowing that those canned vegetables were coming to Ohio here, and I was part of that, was like, oh, that's awesome. And people are buying them, and it's because of me. And then when my kids ended up in Hawaii, and part of the shipments going to containers to go to California to go to Hawaii, I'm like, yes, I'm bringing my older kids vegetables, even though it's not me. And so that was, again, just whatever it does for you, but it's when you have the passion that ties to it, that then you have your true meaning.
Everything. You have everything.
Yes. So
wow, that conversation took 100 different turns, DJ. What do we got today?
It did, but I think it ties back, and I picked this before, and Greg mentioned something about doing the same thing over and over. So it does tie to Albert Einstein is the quote. But before we go out, thank you to American Logistics, Centurion Trucking, Damon, and all you guys, people over profits. If you're looking for a home, go there. Greg, seriously, thank you for just being on, giving us an hour of your time. We know you're so busy. 20 hours a week, spreadsheet guys.
21 now.
If your customers
extra
are,
hours.
if your clients are doing that, if they are, you really need to help them now. But again, thank you. Seriously, Greg. Thank you, everybody, for all of your comments, for joining us. And here we go. In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. Find the opportunity.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance in